Well, greetings out there in YouTube land, and welcome to today's video extravaganza, which features the contents of this relatively small box. But I've got to tell you, it may be small, but I don't recall ever being more excited about working on an item than the one that's in the box you see before you. So without further ado, let's cut the box open and see what is lurking inside. As you probably noticed, the box is starting to break open, but fortunately it was very well packed inside with our little cocoon here, carefully protecting the contents, and this padding on top. So let's open up the bubble wrap and see what has got your old uncle so excited. And before I do, I just noticed this box has a false bottom. Okay, that threw me off, and look, here's our letter, and I'm betting some cat treats. Oh, these are among their very favorites. Excellent choice. See, we got catnip fever and seafood medley. Ooh, two of my favorites. So thanks so much. You not only sent me something I've been wanting to get my hands on for about 10 years, and you've also sent to our feline musicians a couple really nice bags of treats. Okay, so let's open this up, see what it is, and then see what our assignment is from the owner that shipped it to us. Well, here it is, a DeArmond Tremolo. Okay, first off, it's much smaller than I expected. Look at that compared to my hand. Somehow I thought they were, maybe half again bigger and a lot heavier. It also has its that doorstop style of on-off foot switch, and it has the cables, one for power, and I'm assuming that the input from the guitar goes here and that this will go into the amplifier. We're going to examine every square inch of this thing, take it completely apart, and make it work perfectly. Let's see, we'll verify that that is what our assignment is. Sorry for the rough shape of this old beast. Let's see. I'm honored that you're accepting this. I know you'll do your thing. Well, that sounds like a general charge here, which is make this work like the day it was made. And those of you who have been viewers for a while will know that I have made from scratch two of my own versions of this Electromechanical Tremolo. I will drag those out and show them to you in this video, and also provide links to the videos so that you can see them firsthand. This is, I believe, the very first of all guitar effects units. It's the mother of all pedals, in other words, and to those of us who are true dyed-in-the-wool tremolo hounds, this little jewel is the ultimate. Okay, so without further ado, I think it's time to get it opened up, see what's awaiting us inside, see how it works, see what we can do to make it work better. Also, we'll take a little break in the middle of the video and look at the two versions that I made of this. One of them uses a similar drive mechanism, the other is completely different. They both achieve the same purpose though, and that is to give you some of the smoothest, deepest, most seasick inducing tremolo that you've ever heard in your life. Just ask Billy Gibbons. He's addicted to these things, and he even runs two of them slightly out of sync, if you can imagine that. So this is going to be a stellar video, so by all means stay tuned. We're about to get started. With hands trembling from excitement, I have removed the 4 screws that are holding this top cover on, and now let's lift it off and see what awaits within. Okay, here we go. Wow, talk about some compact construction. I can see here there's a rubber drive wheel that probably should be touching this cone here. The wheel is going to move along and be driven by various diameters of this impeller here. As you can see, when it's out here near the end, it will be at its slowest rotational speed as the rubber wheel. It's sort of like the rubber wheel on those old, 45 RPM record players that always dry out and don't work right. Let's hope that this one isn't like that. And then as you move it in here, you have greater rotational velocity on the surface of this, so that will speed it up. So moving the rubber disc back and forth along this tapered drive shaft will be our speed control. Down inside there you can see the little, probably copper tank that holds the secret fluid that is used to generate the tremolo effect. I will explain this with diagrams. It's very simple how it works, and you'll fully understand exactly what makes this thing tick. It looks to me like as you turn the speed knob here, you're going to drive that rubber wheel along that tapered drive shaft. Okay, so I think we need to go into this a little further. As you can see, there's nothing really holding the wheel vertical, if it's supposed to be vertical, or up against that drive shaft. So all kinds of things here, all sorts of things to consider, and I think partial disassembly is necessary, and then we'll start cleaning it up and making it work to the best of our ability. Yes, I can see that, as predicted, there is a screw mechanism here from the speed, and it's going to move this lever here, which will then propel the rubber wheel back to a thicker part of that drive shaft to speed up the unit. Thus, speed is increasing here as the arrow shows as you go clockwise. Then as we bring that arm back toward us, speed slows down. I have a feeling that the increase knob is simply controlling a volume potentiometer, which then will make the effect have greater or less intensity. So really, that probably should have been labeled intensity, because let's face it, increase and speed kind of go together, like you have to turn both knobs at one time. But it's kind of late in the game here to be changing the labeling of the mighty DeArmond Tremolo. Just for fun, I plugged the two-prong power cord into the current limiter, and let's see here, when I push down on the foot switch, the motor works perfectly. Stop. Here goes start. Dead quiet. It's smooth. That's really important, because if this motor was burned out, God help us, it probably had to be rewound. So, motor works. I think the rest of this should be... Well, now it's time to completely disassemble the little DeArmond unit so that we can get inside and see what type of spring we need to hold that eccentric wheel against the little drive cone. Also, how to get the proper amount of fluid into the little brass or copper canister. I've been doing some research about these things, and apparently it was invented in 1946 and then put out for sale in 1947. They were actually built by Rowe Industries, and I'm thinking it's the same Rowe that made AMI jukeboxes. Okay, Rowe Industries in Toledo, Ohio. Apparently there were like 3 different versions. There's a model 60 that had chicken head knobs. That would be the first one. Then that would have been like around 47 to very early 50s. And then during the 50s there was a model 60A, 60 letter A, and I believe that's what this is. Both of the 60 and 60A were in this metal box, and then there was a 60B that was made later in a kind of a Bakelite plastic box. I've seen those on eBay. They sell for a lot less money. This and the predecessor with the chicken head knobs are really the one that everybody wants. Also, I found some famous tunes that were recorded using a unit exactly like this, or the one with the chicken head knobs. Remember Rebel Rouser, one of my favorites, by Dwayne Eddy. Muddy Waters recorded a song called Flood, in which he used one. And of course, Bo Diddley, I think, was probably the main proponent of the DeArmond Tremolo, and we all remember his song Bo Diddley, and which he went into that really kind of watery, swampy type of tremolo effect. Well, that's it right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this apart and get started on it and see what kind of little surprises await us inside. First, I've removed the side bar here, and you can see that the speed control arm travels through this slot right here. Let's set this aside. I took out the screw over here that holds the speed control arm pivot. Next, I'll have to melt that solder, and we will have our little canister and drive wheel then removed from the unit. I unsoldered that ground strap that you see now at the top that's free from the point of contact right there. And when I try to remove the unit, I see that the little electrode that's inside the canister is also grounded, so I'll have to unsolder this wire. Also, this wire is that type of kind of braided silver wire that you see going between the speaker baskets and speaker cones, because it has to be completely flexible, where when the little canister is rocking back and forth, you don't want this to fatigue and break. So let me unsolder it, and we'll free up our canister, drive wheel, and speed arm. As I unsoldered this, I noticed that this is the one of the connections that goes up here to the intensity pot. So it appears to me that the intensity pot then will allow more or less grounding of the electrode that's inside our canister. Okay, so you see it leads right up here through the volume control pot, and then I have a feeling that's going to be the signal output right there, which I'm also sure that the input and output have to be shielded. You can see a shielded cable down here. We'll discuss that once I get this more open and we can gain more access. Now let me give you a view from all angles of that mysterious little copper kettle, which is the heart of the DeArmond Tremolo unit. We have the eccentric drive wheel here. You can see how it's like a cam. It's going to operate with its axis, center axis, not at the center, but offset, so that it has camming action. And when that is riding on that speed control cone, it's going to cause the whole unit to rock forward and backward relative to the little speed control cone right here. Let's look at the bottom of the canister. We see that the electrode is completely insulated from the little can, and at the top I believe this has been soldered to seal it. I think that we're going to have to unsolder this to add fluid to regain the function of this unit. Notice that the little electrode is off center. Okay, let's draw a quick diagram and see exactly how this thing's going to work. Here's my very simple drawing of how the DeArmond Tremolo is going to work. We have the small brass canister here with the little hole in the top that is currently covered with solder. We have a glass insert that I believe does not cover the floor of the canister, but only around the perimeter and at the top, and it holds that rubber piece here so that the hypodermic can come through and penetrate it. We have that white plastic looking insulated little insert here that comes through the brass canister and insulates the wire as it passes through up here to our electrode, which is exposed just above the insulating sort of pedestal here. Okay, the brass canister is grounded, and since the bottom is exposed to the fluid in here, the fluid itself is grounded as well as the bottom of the canister. Now I think, as you can see, every time that the canister tilts, say this way, the electrode is above the fluid level and remains dry. When it tilts back this way, the fluid level will rise on this side and short the electrode to the bottom of the canister. So we have a rhythmic sort of shorting, unshorting, shorting, unshorting going on at a speed that we will adjust using the speed control on the little DeArmond Tremolo. And now, through video magic, the intensity pot appears. Okay, our grounding and ungrounding signal that's going to be produced by the fluid and electrode in our little brass pot will come over here to the wiper of the intensity control. And at the other side we have a shielded cable that comes in from our guitar. It's our guitar input and output to the amp. Now, if you were to eliminate the DeArmond Tremolo, this then would simply be a very short piece of shielded cable between your guitar and the amplifier. But when we hook one side of the intensity pot to that music signal wire that's encased in the shielding, when we run the wiper up to the top, I think you can see that there is a direct connection between the music signal and the electrode that's being grounded and ungrounded. So that would be our very high intensity tremolo effect. When you crank the wiper down to the bottom of the potentiometer and inject 100,000 ohms of resistance between our tank and our music signal, the music signal is going to ignore the tank and its modulated grounding and just continue on to the amplifier. So as you can see, we can control high intensity or low or no intensity at all with our intensity potentiometer. Now let's see how our little tremolo unit affects the music signal. Now, for simplicity's sake, instead of drawing a music signal like we're used to seeing, I'm just going to inject a steady, we'll say 400 cycle per second tone. We'll inject it here with the signal generator, we'll run it through and bring it out to the amplifier, and we'll hear it on the speaker of the amp. Now, when we increase our intensity pot up here to the point at which there is no resistance between the rocking little brass pot and our music signal, this is what the steady tone will look like. Notice that the amplitude is right up here at the peaks. So what will happen is our amplitude will drop from normal to low, normal to low, normal to low. It's tempting to draw the curve like this, but at no time does this amplify the signal. So all it does is reduce the signal. So all we can have then is negative inflections here in our waveform. So this is what we get out. And the frequency of the modulated output is controlled by the little spindle-shaped speed control and how fast we rock the pot. Okay, the depth of the modulation is controlled by our intensity pot. I hope that makes sense. And if so, now I'm kind of excited. Let's go over and remove the solder up here and check to see if there really is any fluid left in the tank. My bet is there isn't, Let's go see. Alright, after melting the solder and trying different ways to get the solder away from that little hole, I ended up using compressed air. But you can see the tiny little hole. Now, what's strange here is if you look, if I get the light right, there is a glass lining to this little canister. And when I put a small wire through this hole, it feels like there's a rubber stopper on top of the glass canister. I think this is going to be just like how injectable drugs are, where they're in a glass bottle with a rubber stopper that has to be penetrated with a hypodermic needle. I believe that's the case here. So what I'll have to do now is hunt down a hypodermic needle of the right gauge and a syringe with which I can inject the fluid back into this canister. I'm thinking probably around half full ought to do it. This may be a sight glass right here that allows you to see the volume. I'm trying to get the reflection off the glass, so there it is. So you can see that there's glass inside the little copper kettle. Okay, so I'm guessing that when you can see the fluid in that dark area right there, you're looking into the canister, that's when the fluid's at the right level. So the hunt begins now for a proper syringe and needle. Well, this proves that somewhere in my workshop, although it might not be easy to find, is darn near anything you could ever ask for. I found part of a syringe, the plunger's missing, with a needle of the appropriately small gauge, and with that I fill this up with Windex. I sharpened the needle and went through that little hole in the top, and sure enough, as Billy Gibbons says in the Vintage Guitar article, there is a rubber stopper down inside. I penetrated it, and then I had to blow the Windex in using my lungs, and we'll go out in the light and you'll be able to see how the fluid is now in. There, I think you can see the bubble moving back and forth. Also, the white that's in there is the insulator, okay, the plastic insulator. So I'm thinking that that's probably about right. It looks to be about half full. If not, I'll put the needle in there and draw a little out. But now I'm going to check this with a ohm meter as I rock it to see if it really does change the resistance depending on whether that Windex is up on the electrode or not. Okay, I've connected the ohm meter probes, one to the electrode and the other to the grounded canister. Okay, now let's tilt it back and forth and look at what happens to our resistance readings. Okay, vertically it's at 44K. Turn it sideways. We get, you can see it's drying off. The Windex is coming off of the electrode. Now in operation there wouldn't be time for that to happen, so it's going to be bouncing back and forth between like about 44K and 80, 90K. But you can see it works. Now here's the issue that I found when I made my own, and that is when it's like in this position right here, this is the low resistance position. The fluid is on the electrode, and this is the way it is for at least half the time. Now that's going to be quite a load on the music signal, because we know that volume controls normally are like 1,000,000 ohms. And what are we looking at here? 100K. So that's a concern, and you don't want a huge volume difference between when you're using the tremolo and when you're not using it. Okay, so that's going to be something for us to think about. Now there's going to be experimentation necessary, I think, to get this thing optimized, but what we learn finally will be applicable to any of these units that you all can turn up, like on eBay and all. Now you probably won't be afraid to buy one that isn't working. Once we get through with this video, you'll see everything there is to know about them, and unless the motor's burned out, you probably be able to repair it yourself. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish cleaning this up examining the rubber wheel, which looks to me like it's in perfect shape, and maybe trying to get this back together with optimum spring tension of the rubber wheel against that drive cone, and also double check the wiring. I can tell you right now, it's nothing to write home about, okay? So we'll try to improve that. So this would be full music signal volume. This would be diminished music signal volume. Full, diminished, full, diminished. Typical volume modulation. Okay, I connected the ohmmeter probes to the two wires that go in and out of that intensity potentiometer. Let's go ahead and run the pot through its sweep and see what kind of resistance we get. Okay, here we are at minimum intensity. I'm going to move it very slowly. Well, that's weird. It goes up. Now it's starting, no. Now it's jumping all over the place. You know, it's not really behaving the way I like potentiometers to behave. What a mess. You know, let me try to clean it with some deoxit, see if that helps. If not, I think we're going to have to replace it. Look at this. What a mess. I'm steadily turning it clockwise and getting some of the weirdest resistance values. Okay, let me clean it and then we'll see if that makes any difference. I've drawn up a very simple diagram here of the circuit. Guitar is going to plug in here. Of course, the shield will ground to the body of the tremolo unit. The little blade here of the music signal is shielded, goes straight through the unit and to the amp. But right here there is a wire connected to that music shielded music signal wire, which comes up through the intensity pot and then over here to our grounded or ungrounded electrode. So depending on the setting of the intensity pot, more or less of the music signal will go to ground as the little canister rocks back and forth and the fluid grounds and ungrounds the electrode. Now I've gone in here and unsoldered the two leads for the pot. Let's pull that pot out and take a look at it. Well, in the things are never easy category, this about pegs the meter. Apparently the knob was glued in place with some sort of bizarre substance. So anyway, it's off. I do think the pot will have to be replaced, so the knob had to come off anyway. The plastic knob itself is not harmed in any way, which is important because God only knows where you'd find replacements. But anyway, you know, life's never easy, so let's go ahead then and finish removing this potentiometer. Here's the hardware, the little nut, washer, and the little increase disc came off. You can see how nice the original paint was, shiny, that brown wrinkle. Okay, let's go ahead then and push this pot through and get a look at it. Okay, let's see how this jewel sweeps when it's separate from the unit. We got around 76.7 K. God only knows, it's probably supposed to be 100 K. I'm going to start turning it clockwise. It goes up, down, way up. Okay. How you liking that? Sweet, huh? You don't even need the tremolo unit. This volume control would probably give you all the effects you could handle. Look at this. Gradually working its way down, but not very smoothly. Okay. I really am not impressed by the performance of this potentiometer. I'm guessing it's supposed to be 100K. I'll try and figure that out, okay, and then we'll figure out what to do with this jewel. I'm thinking the nearest dumpster, but we'll see. All right, I removed the back from the potentiometer and gave the little carbon track and contact a nice bath of deoxit. I'll blow it out gently with some compressed air, and then we'll try it again, see if that improves the sweep at all. Okay, let's watch it sweep now. Looking a little better, isn't it? It's natural for a digital multimeter to jump around when you're sweeping a potentiometer, but once you stop moving the pot knob, it should settle down quickly like this one is. Okay, I'm real pleased with that. I think it's perfectly usable. Okay, and using a little Blue Magic metal polish, I was able to polish all the scratches out of the knob so that it and its partner are beautifully transparent, scratch-free, and look almost as good as new. Now that the potentiometer has been removed, we can get a really nice close-up look at the input jack. You can see that the blade here for the music signal goes directly here into the shielded cable that then comes out the rear and goes to the amplifier. Next, we can get a good look at that rotary ramp that pushes the wheel back and forth on the drive cone. You see how simple that is? It's simply a ramp that's been bent in a circle, and as the control arm rides on that ramp, it is pushed to the rear and then back to the front. Also, in photographs I've seen of these, the signal wire and the foot switch wire exit down here from these little holes. Instead, apparently somebody went in here and rewired this, but they just bundled everything up and brought it out through this larger hole here, which I don't know if that was drilled for the purpose. That just doesn't seem right. Okay, so I think when I go in here and install a 3-wire power cord, I'll probably run the power cord through here, hopefully with a grommet if possible, and then maybe run my signal wire here and my foot switch wire here. All right, I removed the 2 screws that came through the floor and this one remaining side screw, and I've dropped the motor wall of the little case over on its back, and now I'm going to unscrew the motor, lift it up, and then we'll be able to get back here to rewire it with a proper power cord. I undid the 2 motor retention screws, kind of somersaulted it out so that the drive cone is down on the workbench. And you can see how this is wired. It's very elementary. You have, in this case, the zip cord comes in here, and one of the wires from the zip cord goes directly to the motor. The other wire from the zip cord goes out to the on-off switch, the foot switch, and then comes back and it goes to the motor. So the foot switch is in series then, hopefully with the hot wire to the motor. We're going to make sure when we do our polarized 3-wire power cord that it is the hot wire that is turned off. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, the zip cord has been removed. One end was just hard soldered right to the coil of the motor, and the other end went to this wire that goes out to the foot switch and then comes back to the other side of the motor coil. Okay, so now this is ready to be sent back to the customer, and we're going to install a brand new 3-wire power cord. And speaking of power cords, wait till you see what Greg in Kentucky sent your old uncle. Let me get the blade and we'll open this jewel. Check it out, about 30 pounds of really nice, slightly used and brand new 3-wire power cords. So thanks so much, Greg. I hope I live long enough to use all these jewels. We'll be using this one today. As promised, I have all three wires running through three separate openings here in the rear of the unit. This is the green ground wire, which is securely screwed down and will communicate with all of the metal in the entire unit. Now I have to wire the hot wire. We know that's going to go to the foot switch, and the white wire, which will go directly to one side of the motor winding. Well, the unit is completely rewired. The black wire goes out to the foot switch and back to one side of the motor windings. The white wire goes to the other side of the motor winding, and the green wire is securely chassis grounded. The signal wire is right here and ready to be reattached to the input jack. Okay, so let's see if this works. Watch the little drive cone there as I step on the foot switch. Off we go, dead quiet. Perfect. I pronounce the rewiring a complete success. Okay, I've rewired the controls here at the front, the input jack, the ground that comes up and connects right up here to the chassis, and I've bent the contact for that flexible wire from the little canister to connect over here. Okay, now it's time to reinstall the rear motor wall, and I think we'll be ready then to also to reinstall our wheel and canister. Alright, everything's wired in here. All the wires are routed out of the way so they won't interfere with our rubber wheel and our little keg full of Windex. Motors installed, grounded. Everything looks good, nice and neat. And now let's put in this sidebar, and then we will install the rubber wheel with the eccentric disc, and also our little canister. Now you're probably wondering why I split up the three wires. The reason being is that this is the signal wire here going to our amp. It's very susceptible to picking up hum, and if you run AC wires right along beside it for any length of time, you're going to get some hum even if the wire is shielded. Okay, so by separating them like this, we absolutely have done our best to make sure that no AC hum can intrude into our signal. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Blue Magic metal polish cream, it's available at car parts places like AutoZone and O'Reilly's. Let me show you here on this really kind of ugly piece of metal what this cream can do for you. And here you see a lot of that black soot's been removed, the stains, and we have a really nice fresh looking metal surface. Alright, that flexible wire from our tank comes over here and connects to this wire lead that goes up to our potentiometer, which gives us the intensity of the tremolo effect. I've made sure that nothing down here interferes with the reciprocating motion of the wheel and tank. Before this arm, this piece of wire right here was interfering with the wheel. So now about the only thing that's bothering me is that there's nothing holding the wheel and tank really tight against this drive spindle, and I think there should be like a fairly weak spring between that arm that holds the tank and maybe somewhere over here on this arm, so that the tank and wheel are pulled up snug against the drive spindle. Now when I turn it on, it seems to be working just fine. You can see how the eccentric wheel is jostling the tank. Hopefully the fluid level is correct so that we're shorting and unshorting that electrode. I really think though that we need some sort of a spring to apply firm tension between the rubber disc and the drive spindle. And just to verify that, I turn the speed up and the wheel is actually hopping off of the spindle. So let's get out these drawer O springs and pick one out that has just the right tension. And here it is. I think this will be perfect. It might be a little light for the job, but I think we can make it work. Alright, I picked out what I think is the perfect spring right here. I connected it between the arm that holds the little canister and a hole up here in this support arm, so that now we have some spring tension holding the wheel against the drive spindle. Let's turn it on and adjust the speed and see if it works properly. Then, as a final step to reduce vibration and noise, I put 4 foam rubber feet on the bottom of the little case. And now let's turn it on and see if it hasn't gotten a whole lot quieter. Okay. Still hear a tiny bit of sound. At high speed, it's almost dead quiet. Turn it down. Much quieter. All right, I think it's time to test it. Well, it's time for our first audio test. I have the signal generator sending in a ear-pleasing 200 cycle per second tone to the input. The output here comes over to a little Fender bullet amplifier, which is on and at fairly low volume. Let's turn up the tone, and I've got the little tremolo set at high speed. You see where the wheel is up there on that tapered shaft, and I've got it at a maximum intensity. So let's start it. Wow, it actually works. Let's slow it down a little and see what happens. Uh-oh. It works, but I'm hearing some background. I'm thinking the fluid level's wrong. Right about there is fine. It can go up full speed, comes down about half speed, but at the low end, you hear that static. I'm not sure what's going on. We'll have to investigate, but you gotta admit, kind of nice that it works on the first try. Well, I moved a couple wires around inside, and now it sounds great at the low end. And at the high end. None of that static. It's going to be real touchy, I guess, the lead dress in this jewel. So let me keep experimenting and I'll report back in just a few minutes. I'm finding that it works beautifully, dead quiet. Everything's fine as long as you are on maximum intensity. Now watch, when I back off of that, you lose your tremolo effect very soon. Still get a bunch of rotation. That's about the earliest knob position where I can actually hear a little of the tremolo effect. Let me get out my ohm meter and see. Maybe we need to change this pot to a different value. Let's take a short break here and take a look at a couple really nice gifts that we received over the last couple weeks. First off, a local viewer named Tom had me fix an amplifier for him, and to show his appreciation, he got me this really nice ZZ Top t-shirt. He knew darn well from our audio demos that we favor this group, and by George, now I can dress and tell the world I do. And second, a very generous viewer in Spain had his Fender basement amplifier converted to 240 volt AC and took out the old 120 volt transformer and had no use for it, so he sent it all the way to a... Now this is just a wonderful part to have on hand in case I ever come across one of the 4 amps that it fits and that amp happens to have a bad power transformer, because boy, have we got a nice original one here to install. So what can I say, Joseph? You're more than generous. We really appreciate it and wish you the very best. Now my solution for that hair trigger intensity control is to replace the audio pot that the unit came with a reverse audio pot. And to explain why, let's talk about the theory of the 2 different types of potentiometers. The normal logarithmic or audio potentiometer has a rotation to resistance ratio that starts off fairly horizontal and then becomes very steep at the end. This is to mimic human hearing. Okay, now let's say that this right here, the dotted line, represents the resistance at which the tremolo will start to become audible. Okay, it's going to be horizontal right across here, the resistance. Now, the only part of the sweep of the log or audio pot then that can control what I hear from the little DeArmond Tremolo is this little area right here, which is very steep, and the colored triangle that I put in here will represent the amount of control that I have over the tremolo. As you can see, just a tiny bit of rotation will change resistance tremendously. That's why it's like a hair trigger. Nothing, 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 boom, way too much. Okay, you can see the curve shows exactly the way the response of that potentiometer behaves. Now let's compare that to a reverse audio pot, which is sort of like the mirror image of the audio, in which it's the opposite of human hearing. It starts off very steep and then levels off, just the opposite of this. Level, steep, steep, level. Okay, and with the same amount of resistance, at which point the tremolo becomes audible, look at all of the gentle slope I have here of control, and look at the enhanced control I'll have over the tremolo, comparing the area of this upper triangle to the area of the triangle showing the amount of control with the log or audio pot. So why don't we install the reverse audio potentiometer in our little DeArmond Tremolo and see if my theory is correct. Now, how do you know that you have a reverse log or reverse audio taper pot? It will have a little C prefix before the total resistance reading. So this is a 250K pot with the C prefix, which means reverse audio. It's also called a 30C taper. So if you see C or 30C, that means reverse audio. Here's how I intend to demonstrate the difference between the 2 potentiometers. I have my signal generator putting out a 200 cycle per second tone and feeding it into the DeArmond Tremolo, which is running now at sort of a slow to medium speed. We have the output from the tremolo coming over here and plugged in to a Fender Bullet amp. You can hear the 200 cycle per second tone. I have the volume turned way down, but you can hear it. Then with the regular audio or log pot that came with the unit, we're going to slowly crank the intensity up until we can just start to hear the tremolo effect. and then we'll see how much more rotation we have. So we can get an idea what percent of rotation is actually usable with the potentiometer that came with the unit. Okay, now you can hear the unmodulated 200 cycle per second tone. Nothing. Starting to hear a little. There. You can hear it and it's what, about at the E on increase, a little bit past the E. Right about there. We can start to hear it. Now it gets real strong and we run out of pot. So as you can see, the total percentage of rotation in which this pot is usable is from about the E to down here, which is, I don't know, what would that be, 10 or 15% of the total rotation is usable. So we've got absolutely nothing, and then all of a sudden we have what amounts to too much. Okay, so now I'm going to install a reverse audio pot, and we'll repeat the experiment and see what percent of rotation is usable with that new potentiometer. I have the new reverse log pot installed here in the increase or intensity position. Now I'm going to strum an E chord and slowly move this up, and you're going to see that we have a whole bunch more control over the tremolo. Pretty intense, eh? Well, it looks to me like we have from about the 9 o'clock position, 180 degrees, plus about 10 or 15 more degrees of sweep now. Considerably better control over the tremolo at the very low end and at the very high end. Now let's vary the speed control. We'll start off in its slowest position. Slowest to fastest. Slow position's nice and swampy, just the way Bo Diddley liked it. Well, I feel like our little DeArmond Tremolo is working just as well as it possibly can. I'm really pleased with the new intensity control with that reverse log pot. I think our speed control works smoothly and gives us a really nice variation from real slow and swampy to just fast enough. the little hole there in the probably brass tank is supposed to be soldered shut, but that seems sort of barbaric. I'm going to use a little high temperature black silicone sealer and just put a little bit of it over the hole to completely seal it and keep the little canister airtight. I guess now it's time to put the cover on and do an audio demo where we check all the different intensity settings and speed controls with Ollie and Jack playing some familiar tunes. Okay, so let me get it ready, and you just get comfortable, grab a beer, and we'll be right back. Well, now it's that moment we've been waiting for, where we get to hear the little DeArmond Tremolo in action. And what better amp to use it with than a 5E2 1955 Fender Princeton Tweed amp. Okay, so we're going to be using the cabinet speaker and inputting our DeArmond into it. Okay, so remember, this is the on-off switch. I've got Ollie and Jack ready to play some tunes for us, and I will adjust the settings and you'll see how they work. Now I'm going to warn you, so if you're ready, here goes. Okay, step one, the tremolo is off. We're going to hear what this sounds like without the tremolo engaged. Okay, now let's turn on the tremolo, and we'll start off at the slowest speed and at the lowest possible intensity where we can still hear the tremolo. Now let's turn up our intensity a little to sort of a medium setting, like 5 out of 10. Okay, and what we've been waiting for, WFO here, okay? We're wide open, and prepare your Dramamines because you're liable to get seasick. Here we go. Okay, now we'll leave it at medium setting and we'll go up to like medium speed. You've already heard the low speed. Let's go to medium, see what we think. Now for the grand finale, we've got our medium intensity. Let's go to maximum speed and see how it sounds. Well, that about covers the comparisons of speed and intensity. Now let's just have a couple nice tremolo tunes so that we can enjoy the dulcet tones of the mighty DeArmond Electromechanical Tremolo. Well, I guess that's about it on this video of the small but mighty and highly elusive DeArmond Tremolo, the first guitar effects device that was ever made back in 1946. We've checked out every square inch of it, repaired it, optimized it with an improved potentiometer for its intensity control, and now it's time to send it back to the lucky and proud owner. I want to take a few seconds here to thank my Patreon patrons and PayPal contributors for keeping us on the air, advertising free, which is increasingly rare nowadays, for another month. If you'd like to join them in supporting our channel, I will leave links in the video description to help you to do so. I also want to thank all the generous viewers who have been sending us nice gifts, and trusting viewers who have been sending us their fabulous amps for repair. Now it's time for our part 2 video in which we will get an up-close look at the two electromechanical tremolos that I built over the past few years in an attempt to capture the effect of the DeArmond Tremolo. I bid on one of these on eBay several years ago, and after the bidding went way north of $500, I decided I'd build my own. So if seeing my two homemade versions of this appeals to you, and I assure you they're very different in appearance and design, but very similar in function, then please stay tuned. And now it's time for our part 2 video, and in this segment I'm going to give you a really close-up view of both of the electromechanical DeArmond style tremolos that I built over the year. Now in the video description I will put links to the original videos in which this particular model was built from scratch, just from raw materials, and how the other model, which I'll show you in a few minutes, was designed and constructed. And you will get to hear a thorough audio demonstration of how both of these work. Okay, so if you want to see a follow-up on either or both of these devices, just check the video description for links that will enable you to do so. With that said, let me go to a handheld camera, and we'll go over every square inch of this jewel, and I'll show you how it was designed and how it relates to the real thing here, which I saw in videos on YouTube. Like I said, this is the first one I've ever seen in person. So I designed this pretty much just from what I had seen on videos that showed the interior workings of a real DeArmond Tremolo. As you can see, I created a much larger copper tank. The tiny little brass tank in the real DeArmond Tremolo was not as visually impressive to me, so I went with a larger piece of copper tubing, and I machined a little plexiglass window here, both so that I could see the level of fluid and so that it would insulate the electrode from the body of this cylinder. This screw right here was so that I didn't have to use a hypodermic to add or remove fluid. Just an eyedropper will do. As you can see, this little copper tube is held on an arm, and thinking of automotive designs, I drilled holes in it just to make it look a little more stylish, and it pivots up here, okay, on its arm. And then I made an eccentric wheel, as you can see here, and I did sort of a pseudo balancing of the wheel, but it is definitely eccentric, as you can see, with cam motion on the outer perimeter. This is a rubber bumper from an antique pinball machine. I used to work on them, and I had a bunch of these around, so I have a nice rubber tire here, if you will, on the outside. And as you can see, it runs against that conical output drive, just like the original DeArmond does. They have sort of a parallel tip right here, and then a fairly gentle, small diameter increase. And mine is larger. I pull the wheel away so you can see it, and longer, which allows really for a whole lot more sensitive adjustment of speed. We replaced the vent hood over our stove, and not wanting to let anything go to waste, I removed the motor that drives that little squirrel cage that sort of ventilates the fumes from the stove, and I kept it. And sure enough, it was exactly what I needed right here. With this little output shaft, I made a motor mount plate and just attached the motor so that the lock screw that you see right there, that set screw, allows me to put on the drive output that's tapered. And the only thing left then is the front control panel. And as you can see, we have the on-off switch, and I'll operate it for you and adjust the speed and all so you can see it in action. Input and output, and it doesn't matter which one is input and which one's output. Okay, this is going to be the volume control for the intensity of the effect. And up here is my own idea of speed control, and it's a horizontal slider. And when you slide it, I made it where the pivot and the arm that holds the tank all move laterally. You can see how that was done. And it can move up to larger diameter on the drive spindle, or down to the very small diameter tip. Okay, so then I've never seen a speed control like this, but it's just something that came to mind. I thought it would work. And down here I'm at just below 2, or it'd be 1 on the setting, and I'm right at the tip of the spindle. Now what I'll do is turn it on, let it warm up and let it get it running, and then we'll adjust the speed and you'll see exactly how it works mechanically. Now let's watch this little jewel in action. Turn it on, and we're at the slowest speed. We're down here at 1. Now watch what happens as we slide that eccentric wheel along the tapered spindle. Go way up. Now that's really high speed. We can come down here slowly. As you see, there's just infinite adjustability of speed all the way down to what we trim hounds refer to as slow and swampy. Look at that. That's like making a milkshake there. So, as you can see, works smoothly, quietly, and as you'll see in the video, very effectively. It produces a really nice tremolo tone, effect. From the rear you can see the input and output jacks and the volume control, which is exactly like the volume control in the original, in which it controls just how far to ground your signal can go. I mounted the unit on a piece of high density foam to keep it real quiet, and then I made a nice hardwood base for it so that from the front I think it's very attractive. I also polished the aluminum sheeting so it has a real kind of steampunk mechanical look to it. Okay, so that's my first electromechanical tremolo. Actually, the second one I built. Okay, but this is the first one we'll present today. And now I'm going to go get the first one I built, which is a completely different design. Sort of a similar principle, but very different design. Okay, I think you'll get a kick out of just how different they are. So that's it for this one. And here is the first version that I built. As you can see, it's much larger and fancier than the second one we just looked at. I went all out with a kind of an antique looking oak base with our either input or output. Like I said, it doesn't matter which one you plug into, the guitar or the amplifier. And here we have not only an on-off switch, but also a speed control for the motor. I wasn't aware of that tapered spindle drive for speed control, so I just went about it the old-fashioned way with the same type of electric motor from a vent hood, but I mounted it in a very elaborate kind of motor mount here that's machined, and it fits onto the top plate. We've got the output with another machined pulley, and I found to get the slow speed that I wanted, I had to reduce the diameter of the pulley so that, as you can see, the part that the O-ring rubs upon is quite small down in there. It was a matter of trial and error. Started out with a pulley with the O-ring way out here on the outside, But to get it really slow, as you'll see, I turned the pulley down further. And now this large wheel is made of plexiglass, and I turned a inlet into the edge so that the belt could fit tightly and not come loose. Machined a steel center for it so that it wouldn't wear out quickly. And then, like a locomotive, I put a drive arm that comes off the side and then goes to a pivot for a very large copper canister. Let me turn it around so you can get a good look. You can see the liquid in the canister. See that edge of the liquid coming up to ground the electrode and then dropping to unground the electrode. And I have the same type of screw, sealed screw here at the end so that you can fill and empty the tank. I used a larger gauge of copper tubing that's kind of machined looking. I thought that was kind of neat. We got the little flexible wire coming over here, and our signal then will come in one side, out the other, and this will allow more or less of it to go to ground. There is no intensity control on this, only speed control. Okay, so as the electrode is grounded, so is the signal. Okay, let's turn this on and get an idea of the different speeds that it can achieve. Let's turn on the motor, and we'll see it's at its highest speed right now. That's to overcome the inertia of the wheel. You can see that that tank is just going nuts back there. Okay, like on the other one where it's mixing up a milkshake or a martini. But on this one, I have a motor speed control, and I'm turning it slowly here. Now, talk about swampy. How about that for tremolo? Dead quiet, smooth as can be, and infinitely, even slower now, adjustable. A little faster, a little bit faster, slower. So you can achieve virtually any speed you want, from ridiculously slow to ridiculously fast. And it's all done electrically rather than mechanically. This one works great too. Now, at the time that I made this, I didn't even have a YouTube channel. And it was featured on a channel of a friend of mine. And if you follow the link in the video description, you'll go to that different channel and see this in action, and also hear it as it does its tricks and creates really a beautiful tremolo effect for you. Okay, so please follow the link and watch the in-detail video about this jewel. Well, I guess that's about it for this second feature for our DeArmond Tremolo video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you follow the links to watch the in-depth videos showing how these were made and how they sound. And I also hope that you stay healthy and join us in our next video, which will be coming out soon. Thanks so much. Bye for now.